Okay, so thank you again for joining us. And John, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thanks very much, Julie. As Julie said, I've got about 10 or 15 minutes of prepared material with these slides to give you an overview of the different engineering majors at WPI. And Julie will be facilitating the chat, the Q&A, and we'll have time for that afterwards. By way of introduction, again, my name is John McNeil. I'm Dean of Engineering here at WPI. And you should know that by the time I finished my first year of college, I was on my third major. So if you're undecided, I know what that's like. WPI is a great place to be undecided. With our 7-week terms and flexible curriculum, you can try different majors, find out what's best for you, and still graduate on time. Here's a quick overview of the engineering majors you have to choose from at WPI and the kinds of projects you might work on while you're here. The big takeaway message for you, being undecided is okay at WPI. Mechanical engineering is WPI's most popular engineering major, and it offers many options, especially if you're undecided about a major. Mechanical engineers' work touches all the things you use every day, from lighter cars that use less fuel, to batteries that power cars and electronics, to ensuring the safety of the food you eat. Mechanical engineering is behind all of that. Our faculty's interests range widely and include projects such as protecting soldiers by developing new techniques to repair vehicles quickly in the field, exploring ways to mitigate sound pollution in Acadia National Park, developing faster and more energy-efficient drying processes for foods like cereals and crackers, and recycling batteries and reusing the components. Our graduates work for companies like General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, and Medtronic. Aerospace engineers work on projects related to flight and space, from building rockets to designing flame-retardant materials for the textiles worn by astronauts. Aerospace students might design vertical takeoff and landing equipment for autonomous aircraft, or work on designing and integrating high-powered model rockets. Our graduates have gone on to work at companies including NASA, SpaceX, Lockheed Martin, Sikorsky Aircraft, and United Technologies, UTC Pratt Whitney. Our smart world is the intersection of the cyber world and the physical world, a connected array of sensors, embedded processors, systems, and other electronic devices designed to enhance quality of life. As an electrical and computer engineering major, you will learn about cyber-physical innovations from 5G network connectivity to limb prosthetics that follow the wearer's natural movements. WPI's ECE students are working on wireless networks for autonomous vehicles, developing oxygen sensors for newborns, improving navigation, communication, and localization for aircraft, securing embedded systems for unmanned aerial vehicles. ECE graduates work at companies like Apple, Analog Devices, Bose, and Intel. Did you know WPI was the first university in the nation to offer a bachelor's, master's, and PhD degrees in robotics? Massachusetts is one of the nation's robotics hubs. It's full of companies devoted to the many ways robots will be used now and in the future. It might be a medical facility that's exploring robotic surgical devices, or a teacher who wants to use robotics to help students learn. Students here collaborate with pioneering robotics professionals. Robots are all over WPI's campus. Students build, operate, and run robots, and they also dive into the ethics of how robots can change the human world. You might find yourself working on robots that sense and detonate landmines and save lives, using robotics to increase the safety and efficiency of recycling centers, developing a robotics-based system to detect different types of prostate cancer, and creating robotic systems that help human mobility, and working at places such as Amazon Robotics, Tesla, iRobot, and Google. When you drive over a bridge or a highway, you can thank a team of civil engineers. Civil engineers are the people behind the infrastructure of bridges, roadways, dams. work that keeps the world accessible. And it's not only roads and buildings. Civil engineers develop everything from materials like self-healing concrete, smart buildings, algorithms to ease traffic congestion, and even techniques to replace historic art sculptures. WPI project students in civil engineering have worked on wind turbines in Massachusetts towns, design and renovation work for some WPI buildings, and even expansion of the Panama Canal. Our graduates work at companies such as Stantec, Jensen Hughes, and Suffolk Construction. As you know, climate change is one of the biggest challenges facing the world and the next generation of WPI students. If you're passionate about the earth, conservation, or protecting natural resources, environmental engineering is a good major to explore. At WPI, students work around the world on projects that protect and conserve natural resources. They've investigated freshwater scarcity in Greece and wastewater treatment in Puerto Rico. Other students work on projects including evaluating the effects of wind on residential structures, improving the sustainability and accessibility of the La Marta Wildlife Refuge, and reducing phosphorus contamination in stormwater runoff. Architectural engineers combine technology and architecture to create buildings and structures that work in particular climates, topographies, and with local resources around the world. Architectural engineers do more than design buildings. They use cutting-edge technology to make the buildings use less energy, be healthier for people, and reduce the use of natural resources. Other projects that might interest you include building a house that runs exclusively on solar energy in Morocco as part of Solar Decathlon Africa, converting a building in Worcester to a greenhouse and community garden, reducing fire risk in new construction, and optimizing energy-efficient building materials. Chemical engineers use their knowledge of chemical reactions to produce life-saving and life-transforming products. Chemical engineers are working to develop drug treatments and vaccines that will help fight the effects of pandemics like COVID-19. But the field is diverse. Chemical engineers also work in sustainability and health technology. Projects you could work on as an undergraduate include making concentrated biofuel from food waste, developing biosensors to detect the potentially deadly C. difficile bacteria, and projects that help mitigate the effects of climate change. Our alumni work at companies like Amgen, Pfizer, and Solvus Global, a WPI startup. Biomedical engineers work at the intersection of engineering, medicine, and biology. Our BME faculty collaborated on work to develop life-saving ventilators early in the COVID-19 pandemic. You might have heard how one of our teams developed beating heart cells using spinach leaf. Other teams are working on developing artificial organs, researching and developing life-saving medical technologies and devices, creating tissue patches to repair heart muscles after a heart attack. From WPI, students go on to start their own labs or work at companies like Boston Scientific, Mass General Hospital, and Johnson & Johnson. WPI has lots of options. We have expert faculty, cutting-edge facilities, and innovative spaces. Even if you aren't sure what you want to do yet, we'll help you explore your options and find your place here in engineering at WPI. So that concludes the prepared remarks I have, and at this point I'll go to Julie and see what kind of questions people have and answer any questions you want to submit in the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's always actually really helpful for me to hear the examples of the projects that students are doing at WPI. So we are going to open it up for questions and answers from the audience. There is nothing in the Q&A box yet, but I know that's going to change. So I'm looking forward to hearing what questions all of our prospective students have about any of the flavors of engineering that we offer here at WPI. as well as any questions just about WPI in general. You have two semi-experts here, and we're happy to answer whatever you need to know. John, to kick things off, I would love to ask you about, if you could talk about what type of a student makes a great engineer, and what can our students be doing in high school as high school juniors and seniors to really get themselves ready for an engineering degree at a school like WPI?
Sure. I would say the engineering mindset. There are a lot of different ways to describe engineering. I think of engineering as the simplest definition I've used is solving a problem subject to constraints to meet a human need. So if you like problem solving, if you like working on teams, because all the easy problems have been solved already, the difficult problems that are out there now, and the interesting problems to work on are interdisciplinary problems. And there's no way one person can understand everything that's needed. The senior design projects at WPI, the MQPs, the major qualifying projects, very often will involve students from different majors working together on a really interesting problem. Many of these have turned into businesses or become graduate research. So I would say looking at a problem in the real world where there are unmet human needs and seeing how you can apply technology, and not just technology, but very often the business acumen so that a product can get to market, policy issues, maybe if there are government regulations, certainly in biomedical engineering or anything where there's, say, governmental approval needed. There are policy issues involved, and those might be covered in the IQP, the Interactive Qualifying Project. But basically, someone who's just curious, interested in solving problems, and problems that don't have the answer in the back of the book. And that's what's really distinctive about WPI's project-based curriculum in the senior year in the MQP, but really all throughout. You're working on projects that are open-ended, where you will have a faculty member helping you, meeting with your project team, but it's really exciting to see where these projects go. So being comfortable with that, being comfortable with solving problems when maybe there's not an answer in the back of the book, that's really the kind of student that will do well at WPI.
Awesome, great. That sounds like a lot of the applications that I read, so all good
Sure.
to hear. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, which is lovely to see. Please keep them coming. But the first question that we have is, what would the first year look like at WPI for an engineering undecided student?
Sure. Yeah, I see that question from Kelly. That's a great question. And it's great that you're already thinking about what that year would look like. Most of the engineering majors have a lot of common background required in mathematics, in physics, maybe in chemistry or biology. So if you're undecided among, let's say, 3 different majors, you would look at what are the background courses that are required that overlap, and very likely the introductory math sequence and the, say, physics background would be the same or very similar for all 3 of them. So you start along that path, that keeps your options open. For me personally, and I would not recommend this to anyone else, but in my life, my decision-making technique has been to procrastinate until I have only one option left and then call that a decision. I don't recommend that for anyone else. But the nice part of WPI's flexible curriculum is you can start down multiple paths. In this case, the first year math and physics, let's say for ECE, mechanical engineering, there's a lot of overlap. And then you might take the introductory course to both majors. Virtually all of our engineering majors require an out-of-department engineering course. So whichever major you decide not to take, you could use that introductory course as the required out-of-major course for the major you end up taking. So you have to be a little thoughtful in how you do academic advising. Certainly talk to academic advisors, to professors in both departments and get their advice so you can use the flexibility of the system intentionally. Some majors will have the introductory courses available in C term of the freshman year, which would be spring semester. But a lot of the background in the fall would be the same for many of the engineering majors.
Great. Actually, while we're talking about that, I know one question that we get all the time in the office is, can you talk about the process for changing your major at WPI? How easy or how difficult is it? Is there anything that you're prohibited from doing in terms of switching majors?
No, you have a lot of flexibility. The caution is, can you still graduate on time? And that's why it's good to work with an academic advisor early on. And if you look at the requirements for the engineering majors, there is room. There are unspecified courses that you can use to go down the path of a different major. A lot of students will start, say, between electrical and computer engineering and computer science. There's a lot of overlap there, and many students will end up majoring in one and minoring in the other if they've gone, say, halfway down the path in each major. So you can. What are the rule? Is there a rule for declaring majors? I think you have to do it by the end of sophomore year. But really, it's up to you. You know, for changing majors, if there are majors that are, you know, reasonably related to each other, you can use that overlapping background and still graduate on time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I love about WPI because I know other institutions might lock you into or out of a department or something like that, but I do appreciate that flexibility, especially for like students who are joining this session who might know that they like that concept of engineering but aren't sure yet what path that's going to take.
Right. And one thing I would say for people who are comparing WPI versus other schools, this is one of the questions you could ask is, how well does the program allow flexibility, allow someone to be undecided? So we're accredited by ABET, the Accreditation Board for Engineering Technology, and to get accredited, we need to show that students have, you know, certain background in each of the majors. And the easiest way to show that is what many schools do, which will just say, you know, take these 40 courses in this order or else. And it's very easy to get accredited. But for a student, if you miss one course or you want to change halfway through, in many cases you have to repeat a year in a different major, and it's really difficult. And allowing more flexibility means our majors are a little more difficult to advise because you have more options. But if you're willing to, you know, have a relationship with your academic advisor where you're meeting with them and talking about how you want to make progress toward your goals, that flexibility is really important. So as you're looking at different schools, if you're the kind of person who just wants to get a checklist with 40 courses and do that, I mean, that's fine, but that's not WPI. To really take advantage of what WPI offers, that flexibility and being willing to make choices based on information and your personal goals, that's what you'd want at WPI.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure you'll have a good answer for this next question. Nicholas is asking about what opportunities do students in mechanical engineering specifically have for hands-on work?
Right. So virtually all of our engineering majors, including mechanical engineering, have courses with hands-on labs. Not all of them, depending on how theoretical the courses are. You may not have the hands-on option in the class, but we have amazing maker spaces in the Innovation Studio. If you get a chance to visit campus, you can look at the spaces we have in the Innovation Studio where you don't even need to do it for academic credit. You can use it on side projects. We have a number of student clubs that use the makerspace for doing various things. And then in your senior year, when you're doing the MQP, the major qualifying project, you work out with your advisor how hands-on you want it to be. And again, with all the different majors, it's very much a hands-on experience. WPI's motto, Lehre und Kunst, theory and practice, is something that we try to weave into everything we do. In the larger majors like mechanical engineering, we just don't have the space for every class to have a lab, but every student will have multiple courses with hands-on lab experiences in mechanical engineering and in all the engineering majors.
Great. Yeah,
And
and
then
I'll say,
I see the question from Alex on
oh yeah,
how
go for
dependent
it.
on software programs and CAD would any random course be? So if you randomly chose a course, it would depend on the nature of what's going on in that course. So we have some courses that are specifically in a particular CAD software application area. We don't teach a particular brand of software. We would use software. It is industry standard software because that's what you'd be using if you go out on an internship, say even before you graduate. Um, but very often, the way in ECE, which is the area I'm most familiar with, since that's where I spent the first 24 years of my career at WPI, the CAD software is used as a tool to illustrate concepts in the course. So it's not one of I wouldn't say it's a catalog description goal of the course, but to illustrate the design concepts, say in an advanced electrical engineering course, you would use the CAD software that's appropriate for that discipline that engineers are using in the real world. So I would say how dependent on software programs, it varies by the course. In some cases, it's a very close dependence. In others, there may be a recommended package, but if you wanted to use something else, that'd be fine. I know a number of students will use, say, if they do a summer internship, they might work at a company that uses different software for a particular task. If you can get the job done with something that you have more experience in, more of a background, that's fine.
Great. All right, good questions from our audience. I'll give it a minute or two more and see if there's anything you want to know. You have a great resource in our Dean of Engineering here, so don't be shy and go ahead and ask any questions that you have. I know we were talking about project-based learning and our motto of theory and practice. And I can tell you as an admissions counselor, we also love to see that reflected in our applicants. So as you're thinking about submitting your application to WPI, really let us know about some of the cool projects that you've done at the high school level, whether that's associated to your high school or outside your high school. We love to see that. And I think that gives the admissions office a lot of confidence that you know what you're getting into when you apply to a school like WPI. All right, I do see a question about co-ops. Do you want to take that?
I see the question from Nicholas there on the co-op program. Yes, we have a co-op program. Unlike a school like Northeastern, where it's expected of everybody, at WPI, the co-op is optional. Depending on how long the co-op is and what kind of academic credit you come into WPI with, doing a co-op may delay your graduation by a few terms. That's a decision. You're not taking, you're basically moving, say you do a semester co-op, which means 2 terms, you would just push to the end of your academic time at WPI. It's not extra time that you're spending at WPI. It's just a delay since you're spending more time on the co-op. I would say we find more students doing summer internships, maybe a co-op that extends over one of the 7-week terms at D term, which is in the spring, or A term in the fall. I would say at WPI, we use our 7-week terms to give flexibility to do the off-campus projects, the IQPs, in the junior year. If you're coming in with academic credit, where you may not need to do the full 16 terms, then it's much easier to do a co-op and still graduate after 4 years. But yeah, there definitely is a co-op program, and some majors are more co-op friendly than others. And again, I know biomedical engineering, for example, has made a real effort to make co-ops easier for their students. A lot of the majors have the senior design project sponsored by industry partners, where you might work in a technology area in a co-op or a summer internship, and then do your senior project, the MQP, in that technology area. And that's a great way not only for you to become familiar with the technology area, but to see how it's used in the real world and to start forming a relationship with the company. They'll see if they want to hire you, but as importantly, you'll see if you want to work for them. Is that the kind of culture you want to be in? And it's a great opportunity to sense the match, both for your interest in the general field and also for a specific company you might work with. I see the question from Anthony. Do you want to talk about the students who aren't submitting scores, Julie?
I really do. Yeah, WPI was SAT, ACT optional for many, many years, 14 years to be exact. And this year we have made the decision that we are not accepting SAT or ACT scores in the college admissions process. That means that we are test blind. And we did that for a few big reasons. One was that, the SAT has many, many correlations to family socioeconomic status and not so many correlations to how well you're going to do at a school like WPI. It doesn't test collaboration. It doesn't test innovation. It doesn't test creative problem solving. So it wasn't a great test for us. But I think also, with the COVID pandemic, a lot of universities went test optional, but they all had different messages about what that meant. And it became very confusing for applicants as to whether they should or should not submit test scores. So we were comfortable just saying we don't need them. We've been de-emphasizing them in the process of admissions for many, many years. And so we're excited to be officially test blind this year. But that said, putting together your application is important. I can tell you that our office reads applications qualitatively first, which means we look at your essay and what you do outside of school and all of your teacher recommendations before we ever look at your transcript, because we really are a school that cares about how your values will integrate with our values. Of course, the transcript is important. I would love to see you challenging yourself in math and science classes during your high school experience. Hopefully you're earning lots of A's, maybe some B's in your high school experience. But I want you to know that it's just not all about the numbers here at WPI, and that we really do care about that skill set from outside the classroom that you're going to bring to us.
Right, and I would just say, Julie, that from the faculty point of view, our admissions department does a fantastic job of digging through that qualitative background for the students to identify those students who do well at WPI. So what really stands out to me as faculty when I'm advising the senior design project, it's really interesting, is very often the A students, they've succeeded academically in getting those A's by being convergent thinkers that converge on the right answer in a course or in a class. But when you're looking at an open-ended design problem where there is not an answer in the back of the book, you need divergent thinking to look at many different options. And very often it's the B and C students who have actually spent time in a way diverging in how they look at things in different courses and not necessarily getting A's, but have, frankly struggled a little bit, and they're used to struggling. And every senior design project is a struggle at some point because you're trying to do something no one's done before. And yes, you have a faculty advisor, but we're really trying to give the students time to explore these unstructured problems. So our admissions department is the one who basically told us these SATs are great tests of convergent thinking, but they're not predictors at all of how well students succeed at WPI. And our experience on the faculty side, meshed with that perfectly. So when the question came to the faculty to approve test blind admissions, it was overwhelmingly approved. So we're very much behind this and really interested in students that are okay with unstructured problems.
Great point. There is another question that I think like is 50% you, 50% me. Jacob is interested about research opportunities. They've mentioned specifically biomedical research. And then they're also interested in robotic scholarships, which I'm happy to talk about.
Okay. Do you want to go first and talk scholarships, or I can talk biomedical engineering? You go first, Julie.
Okay, great. Yes, so we love FIRST Robotics. You may or may not know that the founder of FIRST Robotics, Dean Kamen, was a WPI alumni. We also love other flavors of robotics. They all kind of work in a similar fashion. So if you participate in any robotics, please share that with us. We do have some scholarship opportunities specifically for FIRST Robotics and VEX Robotics students. So if you are a member of either one of those robotics organizations, just note that on your application, and then we will reach out to you to encourage you to apply for the robotics scholarship. I will warn you that it involves a short video submission because we want to see the robot that you built, and our robotics faculty want to see the robot that you built and what your role was in it before we make those scholarship decisions. But it's, you know, you're not competing with all 11,000 students that apply to WPI. You're only competing with that subset of students who participate in FIRST or VEX robotics. So keep it up. I know it's busy, but have a great senior year season. And yeah, and we'll reach out to you about those scholarships after your application's in.
And Jacob, as far as the biomedical engineering research, there are opportunities throughout all 4 years, and our biomedical engineering department actually ran some virtual internships in COVID times when we weren't taking off-campus visitors on campus. So if you contact Julie, and I can connect with you and get you information for people to talk to in the biomedical engineering department, and we'll get you more information there.
Thanks. And I'll just put, I'm putting the admissions office email in the chat. I think that's the easiest way to get any questions answered. Y'all are welcome to reach out to us at any point. We work with a ton of students in our office who are doing really interesting research. We can always connect you to find out more about research opportunities. All right, well, you all asked some great questions. If there are any final questions, this is your chance. Otherwise, I will thank you all for joining this evening. Thank Professor McNeil for his time. And please do be in touch. We are, we're a smaller university, so we wanna personalize the experience for you. Just reach out to admissions and we're happy to get any questions answered. But with that, I think I can let everyone go. And again, thank you so much for your time this evening or whatever time it is, wherever you all are. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.